What's going on, everybody out there in Badger Nation? Welcome to episode 50. 50 episodes, 50. Steven, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I am excited about the big 50. I feel personally just very privileged and honored to be able to be part of hosting this episode because I haven't been around here since episode 1, but you have been, Mike. So
I'm over the hill. I'm straight up podcaster.
You're over the hill.
Now. I'm about to
Yes, you are.
I'm about to update my LinkedIn to just podcaster.
Honestly, yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, I'm just honored to be here. Honored to be part of everything iBadger's doing and the podcast and everything. So
that's right. I'm also honored by this awesome 5-star review left by NPR 1988. I wonder how old you are. On October 22nd, they said, "Love all the information iBadger gives. Have listened to every single podcast." Thank you very much, NPR 1988, for listening to this one as well. Really do appreciate it. Honestly, truly, madly, deeply. I've blogged. I've made YouTube videos. Still do. We still do all these things. However, the podcast is probably one of the most professionally fulfilling things I've ever done. It truly is an honor to be placed in your earbuds every single week out there. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. And I do apologize for those early audio. The early audio quality was just straight up trash. In fact, our first iTunes review was only 4 stars. Someone's like, the volume's too low. And I appreciate it.
There were so many audio problems that, when I first got hired at iBadger, before my first day, the first thing that I was doing was I was just like listening to all of the podcasts to catch up. And first of all, like, one, I was just stoked to be working at a company that like had a podcast, and I thought it was really cool. But then two, I was also like, dude, the audio sucks. Like, I remember like in my first week I came in, I was like, dude, there's like so many things wrong. Like, I remember Brett at one point, like I could hear his dog's like collar jingling in the background in one of the episodes. So if you know what episode I'm talking about, that's
right.
You're
and
on
at the time,
there,
and when you're recording, like at the time, it's like, oh, cool. Like people get like a raw take and what it's like, but actually it's like just annoying. So I don't know if anyone watches this on YouTube. I'm now in like some foam room, putting a lot more effort.
Yeah, and we've got pop filters now. Like, I don't know what you guys didn't have pop filters on episode 1, did you?
No, we just had pops. As in the noise.
Did you have microphones, or did you just use your laptop microphone?
we had real bad mics.
Okay.
So what we wanted to do, so we, as you can tell, we've learned things through the last 50 episodes. And what we wanted to do on this episode, what we've done, we've actually taken a look back at some of the earlier episodes, and we wanted to provide an update to each of them. So we have a few updates here, and as is usual on our show, let's get right into it. So our very first episode, October 2018, the question was, are we living in the golden age of Amazon ads? And I had a very simple answer back then. It was a resounding yes. And today, I still want to say yes. I still think we're in the golden age of Amazon advertising. It's still relatively cheap. It's still high converting. I think the only thing that has changed is the barrier to entry. I think it's gotten more complicated. There's a lot more layers to it. And I dare say there's maybe some more misinformation about it. Just sort of like loads and loads of crazy different strategies that if you are starting like on day one for Amazon advertising, you're probably going to be pretty confused. So in general, I'd still say, I still hear people talk about their Google Ads conversion rates, and people on Amazon, they got it good. So what do you think, Steven? Still the golden age?
Yeah. So as this episode goes on, we'll talk more about, conversion rates back then versus conversion rates today. Back then being when we first started the podcast. But I think way back when, you said average conversion rate on Google was like, I think you said 2 to 3%. Is that correct?
1 to 3 for an e-commerce store
1 to 3.
getting direct sales from Google search. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Amazon is still in the 9 to 10% range. So that's huge. Obviously, someone searching something on Amazon is way more bottom of funnel than someone searching on Google. And so to be doing, PPC with Amazon ads, I think the other thing that is like it's growing so quickly and new things are coming out from Amazon every week that if you are, if you're like on top of your game and you're like following the news with Amazon and listening to this podcast, like you're ahead of the curve. And yes, so Golden Age, like there's so much opportunity in Amazon itself, and you're doing a really good job right now by just listening and trying to keep up with everything that's coming out.
Yes. So, if someone were to say, oh, no, I can't start Amazon advertising, or, there's too much to learn, don't worry. I still think you're ahead of the curve. And let's jump to our second update. So also in October 2018, we had an episode, one of our most popular, believe it or not, on Bid Plus. So here's an update.
Not even one of the most popular. I think it was the most popular, right? I think
for a long time,
lifetime to date, this has the most listens. This episode has the most listens of all time.
People like bids. Bid for just reason. Like bids are a very popular topic for PPC. It determines your ACOS. But yes, so basically Bid Plus. Here's an update. Bid Plus is now finished. It has been replaced with dynamic bids up and down, dynamic bid down only, and fixed bids. So you went from having sort of this one option of Bid Plus to 3 options inside your sponsored product campaigns. And so you still have some options. Personally, go ahead, Stephen.
Just for anyone listening in right now, what was Bid Plus? Like if someone didn't listen to episode 2 and they joined us recently,
don't
what
do it
was
if you're
Bid
thinking
Plus?
about listening to it. Yes, don't do it. It's because it's out of date. But what was Bid Plus? This is jogging my memory. But if I remember properly, it said something like, we will increase your bids up to 300% if we think you're more likely to win a top of search placement. And that was basically it.
Yeah. I think they said to win a conversion, not necessarily top of search, but probably was included in their definition of a conversion.
Ooh, I don't think it was involved in I think it was just get more clicks.
Was it just top of search? Oh.
Mm-hmm. Talk about
I don't know.
Talk about the 3 bidding options, and I'm going to look this up.
Yeah. So since then, Amazon has switched to, rather than having Bid Plus, they now have 3 different bidding options. You can either have dynamic bidding and they stole that terminology from Google, I'm pretty sure, dynamic bidding. But dynamic bidding up and down, dynamic bidding down only, or fixed bids. Dynamic bidding up and down means they can either increase or decrease your bids by 100%, up to 100%. Based on whether or not they think this will earn you a conversion, but they don't go into any detail about what that means, whether that's where your ad is placed or like the conversion rates for that search term in particular, or if it actually is going into Amazon customer purchase history, like how likely is this Amazon customer to make a purchase? Like they don't explain any of that, so it's a mystery. Dynamic bid down only means they can decrease it by up to 100%, but they won't increase it at all. And then fixed bids just means they won't change your bid at all in real time based on the search. And Mike, you're nodding your head. You got something to say. What's going on?
We were both wrong. It's
yikes.
Well, it will increase your bids by 50% if it thinks you'll be in a top of search position. So it wasn't 300%.
Bid Plus was?
Bid Plus, yes. It had nothing to do with conversions.
Dynamic up and down is different. Dynamic up and down is it will increase or decrease by 100% if they think you will get a conversion, is how they word it, and I would bet my job on that.
That's right. So, certain situations, should you use these dynamic bidding options? Certain situations, sure. I think if you're not optimizing daily, if you're not optimizing weekly, turning these on are going to be better than nothing. So if you're the kind of person that only logs in maybe twice a month, which I can't imagine you don't optimize your campaigns actively and also listen to this podcast, but that would be one situation where that would be really helpful. Personally, I'm still a fan of updating very frequently with fixed bids, but I know there's definitely some situations where that's not the best move. Like you mentioned, Stephen, about like an auto campaign. And in fact, earlier to this, right before the show, you were actually sharing some situations where you do like these dynamic bidding options more than fixed bids.
Yeah, I think you should use dynamic bidding if you're so bidding is essentially your output. How much you're like you take in all this data, and then your output is like how much you're willing to bid. So if you have dynamic information coming in, I feel like it's safe to say you should have dynamic information coming out. So if you have a broad match keyword or an automatic campaign that's pulling in the data that you're making your bidding decisions off of, sure, like go dynamic. If you have an exact match like keyword campaign where your placement settings are optimized, I'm going to go with fixed bids because that's where I think the more control you have over something, the better. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Cool. And with that, let's move on to our third update. Alrighty, one of the other big updates since some of our earlier shows was we did an episode on stats, specifically PPC stats, so average cost per click and conversion rate and ACOS. And Stephen, walk us through what they were about a year ago in October 2018.
Yeah, and I do just really quickly want to preface this with saying that we use AdBadger's software customer base to pull this data from. And AdBadger has grown since. So it's currently October that we're recording this episode. It's actually Halloween Day. It has been a year since we did we measured these stats, and our customer base has grown. We have a bigger pool, a different pool. So for what it's worth, we are trying to be as helpful as possible. But obviously, our sample size has changed over time. So just take that into consideration. But 1 year ago today, October 2018, these were the stats, and I will just fly through them. The average ACOS per user was 37.91%. We'll round up to 38%. The average cost per click was about $0.98. Again, you could probably round up to $1. The average conversion rate was 9.5%. And the average click-through rate was 0.39%. Over time, I have realized that these numbers have, like, month to month, we've actually been like continuing to track these. It has been overall pretty consistent month to month. Another real quick stat, which is a bit of a pop quiz to you, is going off of the data that we have already given you. Can you calculate what the average revenue per click would be? So we have told you what the average ACOS was, the average cost per click, average conversion rates. From that, you should be able to figure out what was the average revenue per click generated for October 2018. Go ahead and pause the episode now and see if you can figure that out by yourself. And if you can figure that out, you're hired, by the way, because we are looking for a new Amazon PPC expert. So if you can figure that out, you won the job. But the answer, and Mike, I'll let you say it because we were just talking about this right before we decided to record the episode, but what is the answer there, and what's the solution?
Yeah, so if you just have the cost per click and the ACOS, you can compare the cost per click to the average cost per click to the average ACOS, and basically throw your cost per click over your ACOS as a decimal. So in that situation, it would be 98 cents cost per click over 0.3791, which gives you $2.59 revenue per click. That means every time you get a click on Amazon in October 2018, you would have earned yourself $2.59 every single click, which is pretty cool.
And that was also such a nerdy conversation.
Yes.
So
I dig it.
Thank you guys for putting up with it. So here are the September 2019 metrics. The average conversion rate. Mike, why don't you take it?
That's right. So a year ago, conversion rate was 9.48. Last month in 2019, September 2019, it was 9.31. So, I mean, essentially the same. We didn't throw in statistical significance here, but a move from 9.48 to 9.31 seems not monumentous. Monumentous, is that a word?
Monumental.
Monumental. So it seems like a small shift down, basically. Conversion rate dipped a little bit. CTR also seemed to move slightly down. It's from 0.39 to 0.37. And, sort of my take on that is there's just a lot more ads. Like there's more ad placements. We didn't crunch impressions here, but I would imagine impressions per day, like impressions per dollar has probably gone up too. So there's more ads being shown, which means probably click-through rate is going down a little bit. Cost per click. This one was particularly interesting. And
real quick,
go ahead.
I want to interrupt real quick. I have noticed just in the past month that top of search ads used to just be 2 sponsored products, and now so if you had a normal size, I think my computer screen on my laptop is 13 inches. So the top row for a 13-inch size screen would be you'd get 4 products at the top, and 2 were sponsored, 2 were organic. Now 3 are sponsored, 1 is organic, and we're so close to being that everything above the fold will be a sponsored product, because that the top half of the screen is a sponsored brand ad. Mm-hmm. The bottom half is 3 sponsored products and another sponsored ad. But yes, you have to consider that when you're thinking about these metrics of click-through rates.
Right. I actually feel like the amount of searches that yield all above the fold results to be paid, I feel like that number, I would love to track that number, because it's not
right?
Zero anymore. There's quite a number of searches that you can make where everything above the fold is sponsored. So
side note between me and Mike on product development, but you all get to listen into this. We track every metric through Amazon's API for the software. I'm curious about placement data, where ads are placed in, if that's available in the API, and if it is, factoring that into these metrics. So
yeah,
that's behind the scenes for you guys. You get that information, but
yeah,
I'm curious about that.
So conversion rate relatively the same, CTR relatively the same. Maybe they went down a little bit. This one was pretty interesting. Cost per click. Last year we had 98-cent average cost per click. This year, 85 cents cost per click. So the cost per click for our sample size of AdBadger customers has actually gone down, which is pretty nice, which connects very nicely to the next 2 metrics. ACoS has also gone down. From a year ago, it was 37.9, and now it's 32%. And revenue per click actually went up from $2.59 to $2.65. So bringing it home, 3 very desirable metrics. Cost per clicks are a little bit lower, ACoS is a little bit lower, and revenue per click is a little bit higher. Now, I can only imagine how many people are listening, sort of saying, well, wait a second, it's harder for me now. My ACoS is going up, my CPCs are going up. So this is, I guess, sort of the problem with averages and sample sizing. As our sample size got bigger, it's possible that we have larger accounts getting better ACoSs, as opposed to smaller accounts that are maybe having a harder time to get off the ground and have higher ACoSs as a result. So take that with a grain of salt, but in general, these are approximate averages. I mean, by saying averages, we mean averages. So these are the averages of our data set.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon doesn't release this information, so if you were trying to figure out what is the average ACoS, the average cost per click on Amazon, I think we're a good source. Probably not the only source, but
I would love to throw in by industry. Hopefully one day when we update our stats post. So we have a really big stat where a stat post, which lists all of these metrics, ACoS, CPC, CTRs, so on and so forth. And I would love to be able to break that down by industry. So if you're interested in that, be sure to let us know.
We've talked about
prioritize that even further.
Yeah, we've talked about segmenting by both industry and seller size, how much you're willing to spend.
Ad spend cohorts.
By the way, if you Google Amazon advertising stats, AdBadger is number 1 on the Google search page. So for what it's worth.
Now with that, final thoughts on how the metrics have changed before we move on to our next point.
I am curious to see how these metrics continue to evolve over time with increased competition jumping into Amazon. I mean, my next door neighbor the other day was telling me how he's like trying to move his product onto Amazon. He's an inventor. He wants to move to Amazon. Like more and more people are going to get on Amazon. So metrics will change over time. And I'm just curious to keep an eye on that.
You know what I would love that we don't have available? So we're talking about averages and how the average ACOS got better and the CPC sort of went down a bit. I'd be very curious on the mode, because one thing I feel like is happening a lot more is there were a lot of people that would hang out at like 10, 20 cent cost per clicks. And I feel like I see that less and less now than I did a year ago, where you'd have these people that would somehow be able to scoop up loads and loads of clicks at, 20, 30 cents. And I feel like I don't see that anymore. So I think if those people sort of, that group sort of moved up a bit, and they were getting more clicks at, that other price, I wonder how that could influence things.
Yeah. And I mean, Mike, I posted this in our Slack channel, but there was an Ad Badger user who got a 1 impression, 1 click, 1 conversion, like keyword, at a 2 cent click, but the sale was over $2,000 for that 1 conversion.
Yeah.
And the ACOS on Amazon literally read 0.00%. 0%
ACOS on 2,000 in sales.
Anyways, that goes back to the episode that we recorded a few weeks ago on, what do you do in these unusual situations? Like, how do you calculate bids off of that? But yeah, so I mean, like, just so you guys know, that is going into this conversion data that we're reporting right now. But you shouldn't discount that, because that's an actual real life user and situation. And so, yeah, that's going into this data, but that's why we really need to consider, niches and, seller sizes and stuff like that. So, anyways, it's probably a good time to move on to the next episode that we're giving you guys an update on.
Alrighty, Steve. Up next, we've got an episode from February 2019. We talked about the dreaded reporting delay, and it's gotten better. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so back then the episode said that Amazon basically, any data that they were giving you within the last 48 hours was essentially unreliable because there was such a big delay. Amazon usually also reported clicks and spend first, and then sales and conversions second. And basically any data that like from yesterday was unreliable, because if you look at your data from yesterday in the morning and then you look at it again in the evening, so much more data comes in, and it was like such a big change that we said it was unreliable to basically make any decisions based on the last 48 hours. Now, we have been seeing that the data. So if you're logging in at like 9 a.m. Pacific time and you're checking yesterday's clicks and spend and sales and stuff, it's going to be pretty consistent. Like from within the next like few hours, your data should look pretty much the same. The other thing that's been actually surprising to me is that it used to be, if you were looking at today's data in Campaign Manager, you wouldn't see any sales information. Like you wouldn't see any conversions, any sales. You would only see spend, and even that was unreliable. But Amazon is seeming to catch up to Google's reporting speed and being able to deliver probably just, I would say maybe, I think we said earlier, 12 hours. So if you're checking it in the evening time, you probably have most of the information from the morning advertising campaigns, sales data, stuff like that. I don't know, Mike, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Amazon says it can take up to 12 hours to get your sales data to populate. Anecdotally, I still hear stories from people that say, oh man, when I look at my data on Monday and then I look at the same dates on Thursday, the data is like way different. I feel like that's happening less. I feel like Amazon's getting better at it, but it still can happen. So, I generally still advocate for sort of a 2-day delay just to be sure that almost everything is there. But hopefully the trend continues that a year from now we're saying, oh man, now it's only a 6 hour or 3 hour delay. I would love to get it more accurate, more faster.
For what it's worth, so me personally, I used to do, like, if I was looking at like, hey, what's the performance for this month? I used to do month to 2 days ago instead of month to date. And now I'm doing month to yesterday. So cool. I feel comfortable with yesterday's data. I know it's like probably 95% accurate, not fully accurate, but anyways, that's my hunch, and that's our update to episode 14.
Alrighty, and back in April 2019, we had an episode about our gripes with Amazon-sponsored brand ads. One of these gripes is still ever present, that we don't have search term reports for sponsored brand ads, but hopefully we can expect it coming soon. Fingers crossed. I light my candle under my picture of Jeff Bezos almost every night, asking for search term reports and sponsored brand ads. So there's that. And some of this is mitigated by single keyword exact match campaigns on sponsored brand ads, which we have talked about.
Yeah, and real quick, just on the search term reports for sponsored brand ads, I just have such a strong gut feeling that those will be coming so soon, just because I've seen how quickly Amazon has been like making changes to, it seems like they've really put it into like high gear. Sponsored products, sponsored brands, even sponsored display. It seems like they know that they're getting more. Actually, so I'm an investor in Amazon as far as like stock markets go. And so I follow the news with Amazon and like their earnings statements and reporting and stuff. And I think they actually said that like it was one of the biggest revenue generators for Amazon in the last quarter was simply sponsored products. So Amazon knows that like their advertising, their PPC stuff is like pulling in so much money for them that it is now worth it to them to really grow the evolution. So anyways, I have a hunch. Sponsored brand ads will have search term reports by the end of November. It is October 31st, Halloween, and I'm calling it. By the end of November, I think they're going to have search term reports. I'm willing to put $5 on the line.
Whoa.
If you want to take me up on that offer.
Me?
Dude, anybody. I was going to say anybody who's listening right now, which we have hundreds and thousands of monthly listeners. So I will challenge you all with the $5. Hit me up.
All
if
of
you want to
them.
take me up on that offer.
I got to put.
I don't know if I can afford it. I can't afford to lose with everybody listening.
We need a legal
but
disclaimer.
I can't afford to win.
Yes, that okay. Alrighty, Steven. There are people out there that have listened to 50 episodes of the PPC Den podcast, just like NPR at 1988 at the start of the show. And I think that's really awesome. People have gotten to know us over these 50 episodes. So I think it's worth asking and finishing up with this question. How have we changed? You want to take that, Steven?
I have changed in so many ways that I don't even know. That would have to be a whole other episode of like, how has Steven changed over the years? Not over the past, I guess 1 year. Not only just from like my knowledge of Amazon PPC, just I think personally just like growing in my own, even just like my personal life. Yeah, just like lots of changes. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is, man, Amazon PPC is changing so fast. And so just getting to like be there and be along for the ride. I mean, even in the last like couple episodes, we talked about like single keyword campaigns, like new strategies just like popping out, single keyword brand ads, like so many different like strategies that we're coming up with. Personally, just being really challenged by people's questions that they've been like writing in, like clients that we're actually working with, just like feeling really challenged, and keeping me on my toes. So yeah, in more ways than one, I think I've just become more knowledgeable on Amazon PPC and just excited for all the future changes that are coming.
Yes, I've definitely seen you grow, like really, really confident. Definitely the kind of person, I think anyone working in Amazon PPC needs to be comfortable with like getting uncomfortable, of like trying something, seeing if it works, analyzing what happened, asking yourself, what can I do differently to get a different result? I think that kind of process, like you've got it. And I feel like that's a muscle that's just getting stronger and stronger. So congrats over the last year.
Thank you. And I don't think anybody really cares about this, but I'll share it anyways. My previous job was I did HR in the construction industry, which I think that's just almost as boring as it can get. And I thought it would be difficult to find a job that like constantly kept me entertained because I'm just such a fast mover. I almost think I have maybe ADD. I don't know. I love entertainment, and Amazon PPC has kept me entertained. And this like job and managing campaigns, I think, has been super exciting and definitely makes me think I could see myself here for the long haul. So I don't know if anybody out there resonates with that.
You know, Stephen, I'm going through applications for our new position, and there's loads of people just like that are like, hey, I do this other position that's outside of the world of Amazon, that's even sometimes outside of the world of just general digital. And they're saying things like, hey, I really want to get into Amazon and Amazon advertising. And as a way to do that, I started freelancing, or I started, I'd launched my own product, just like learn more and go deeper in all this stuff. And I think that is awesome. You know, it's a really special time that, you know, I don't think there's a course anywhere at any college where you can go and buy a textbook on Amazon advertising. But this is a real thing that there's a real industry centered around. And I think it's really exciting, people jumping into it.
Right. If there's one thing that this episode has proved is that if we wrote a textbook on Amazon ads last year, it would be useless this year. So
Yes.
I think another cool thing about like tech startups is that people are caring less and less about actual resumes and background experience because they're realizing anybody can just like, BS that, and caring more about what can you actually do. And that's why even like earlier today, you and me, Mike, we were going over like a technical assessment of like challenging people and being like, if they can figure out these questions, like you're hired. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
That's right. And yeah, Ad Badger's changed a lot over the last year. I think we were a team of maybe 4 a year ago, and now we're getting ready to hire our 10th person, which is really exciting. So we're moving and grooving. And I hope in 12 months from now that we can continue to produce all of the content that we produce. And I hope that it gets even better. And I hope that we find ways to, better talk to our audience and hear what you guys are looking for and what you guys are having trouble with, and combine that with the things that we're learning to create a really, really rich experience for you. I'm excited about our Amazon Advertising Academy that's getting better and better as we're updating it every week. We were just talking about some plans for our Facebook group. And of course, we always have plans for our Amazon advertising tool as well. So I'm super stoked. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I will see you next time in the Badger Den. Have a good one. I think that's it.
Sweet. I felt sentimental towards the end there.